Hello, and welcome to a tale most terrifying, most horrible, and most life-threatening. I am your episode master, Kaznarius, and with me is Rin.
Howdy.
Sliverer.
Who's Sliverer?
And the Pork Chopper.
What's up?
And today I bring you, possibly, the most terrifying story you've ever heard in your entire life. This is Sonic.exe.
I'm a total Sonic the Hedgehog fan, much like everyone else. I like the newer games, but I don't mind playing the classics. I don't think I've ever played glitchy or hacked games before, though I don't think I want to play any after the experience I had. It started on a nice summer afternoon. I was playing Sonic Unleashed. I liked how you get to explore the towns in it, until I noticed out of my peripheral vision that the mailman had arrived and put something in my mailbox as usual and left. I paused my game to go see what I got in the mail. The only thing in the mailbox was a CD case for computers and a note. I took it inside. I looked at the note first and realized it was from my dear friend Kyle. Let's just call him that. Who I hadn't heard from in 2 weeks. I know that because I recognized his handwriting, though what was weird is how it looked. It looked badly written and scratchy and somewhat difficult to read, as if Kyle was having a hard time writing it down, and did it in a hurry. This is what he wrote.
Tom, I can't take it anymore. I had to get rid of this thing somehow before it was too late, and I was hoping you'd do it for me. I can't do it. He's after me, and if you don't destroy this CD, he'll come after you too. He's too fast for me. Please, Tom. Destroy this godforsaken disc before he comes after you too. It's too late for me. Destroy the disc, and you'll destroy him. But do it quick, otherwise he'll catch you. Don't even play the game. It's what he wants. Just destroy it. Please. Kyle.
Well, that was certainly weird. Even though Kyle is my best friend, I haven't seen him in 2 weeks. I didn't do what he asked me. I didn't think that a simple gaming disc would do anything bad to him. After all, it's just a game, right? Boy, was I wrong about that. Anyway, I looked at the disc and it looks like any ordinary computer CDR disc, except it had black marker on it written Sonic.exe. And it was much unlike Kyle's handwriting, meaning that he must have gotten it from someone else, like a pawn shop or eBay. When I saw Sonic on the writing of the CD, I was actually excited and wanted to play it, since I'm a big Sonic fan. I went up to my room and turned on my computer and put the disc in and installed the game. When the title screen popped up, I noticed that it was the first Sonic game. I was like, awesome! Because like I said earlier, I like the classics. The first thing I noticed that was out of place was when I pressed start, there was a split second where I saw the title image turned into something much different. Something that I now consider horrifying, before cutting to black.
I remember what the image looked like in that split second before the game cut to black. The sky had darkened, the title emblem was rusted and ruined. The Sega 1991 was now Sega 666. And the water had turned red, like blood, except it looked hyper-realistic. But the freakiest thing that was in that split-second frame was Sonic. His eyes were pitch black and bleeding with 2 glowing red dots staring right at me. And his smile had stretched wider up to the edge of his face. I was rather disturbed about that image when I saw it, though I figured that it was just a glitch, and forgot about it. After it cut to black, it stayed like that for about 10 seconds or so. And then another weird thing happened. The save file select from Sonic the Hedgehog 3 popped up. And I was like, what the fuck? What's this doing in the first Sonic game? Anyway, then I noticed something off. The background was the dark, cloudy sky from the Bad Stardust Speedway level from Sonic CD, and there were only 3 save files. The music was that creepy Caverns of Winter music from Earthbound, only it was extended and seemed to have been in reverse. And the image for the save file where you see a preview of the level you're on is just red static for all 3 files.
What freaked me out more was the character select. It showed only Tails, Knuckles, and to my surprise, Dr. Robotnik. Now, I was sure that something was up. I mean, how could you play as Robotnik in a classic Sonic game, for crying out loud? That's when I realized that this wasn't a glitchy game. It was a hacked game. Yeah, it definitely looked hacked. It was really creepy, but as a smart gamer, I wasn't scared. Or at least I tried not to be. I told myself that it was just a hacked game and there's nothing wrong with that.
Not that there's anything wrong with it.
Anyways, shaking off the creeped out feeling, I picked file 1 and chose Tails. And when I selected and got started, that sentence doesn't make fucking sense. The game froze for about 5 seconds and I heard a creepy pixelated laugh that sounded an awful lot like that Kefka guy from Final Fantasy before cutting to black. The screen stayed black for about 10 seconds or more. Then it showed the typical level title thing, except the simplistic shapes were different shades of red and the text showed only Hill, Act 1. The screen faded in and the level title vanished, revealing Tails in the Green Hill Zone from Sonic 1. The music was different though. It sounded like a peaceful melody in reverse. Anyway, I started playing and had Tails start running like you would in any of the classic Sonic games. What was odd was that as Tails was running along the level, there was nothing but flat ground and a few trees for 5 minutes. That was when the peaceful music started to lower down into slow, deep tones, very slowly, as I kept going.
I suddenly saw something and I stopped to see what it was. It was one of the small animals lying dead on the ground bleeding. That was when the music started to slow down. Tails had a shocked and sad look on his face that I never saw him have before, so I had him move along, and he kept that worried look on his face. As he kept moving, I saw more dead animals as Tails moved past them, looking more and more worried as the music lowers and he moves past more dead animals. I was shocked to see how they all died, and they looked like somebody killed them in rather gruesome ways. I felt sick to my stomach when I saw this massacre, and apparently so did Tails. After a few more seconds, there were no more animals, and the music seemed to have stopped. I still kept Tails to continue. What the fuck? What? After a minute passed after the music stopped, Tails was running up a hill and then he stopped. It wasn't until I saw why. Sonic was there on the other side of the screen with his back against Tails, with his eyes closed. Tails looked happy to see Sonic, but then his smile faltered, obviously noticing that Sonic wasn't responding to him, if not acting as if he was totally oblivious of Tails' presence. Tails walked slowly towards Sonic, and I noticed that I wasn't even moving my keyboard to make him move, so this had to have been a cutscene.
Suddenly, I began to have a
You
growing...
got it wrong. It's a cut scene, not a cutscene.
Fuck you!
Suddenly, I began to have a growing feel of dread as Tails walked closer to Sonic to get his attention. I felt that Tails was in danger and something bad was going to happen. I heard faint static growing louder as Tails was but inches away from Sonic and stopped to stuck his hand out to touch him. That foreboding feeling in my gut was growing stronger, and I felt the urge to tell Tails to get away from Sonic as the static grew louder. Suddenly, in a split second, I saw Sonic's eyes open, and they were black with those red glowing dots, just like the title image. Thought there wasn't a smile. When that happened, the screen turned black and the static sound was off. It stayed black for about 7 seconds, and then white text appeared forming a message saying, "Hello, do you want to play with me?" At this point I was creeped out. I didn't want to continue with the game, but my curiosity got the better of me when I was taken to a different level with the level title now saying Hide and Seek. This time I was in the Angel Island level from Sonic 3, and it looked like everything was on fire. Tails looked as though he was scared out of his wits this time. He actually looked at me and made frantic gestures to me as if he wanted to get out of the area he was in as fast as possible. I was starting to get freaked out by this. I mean, Tails was actually breaking the fourth wall, telling me to get him out of there.
So I pressed down on the arrow key as hard as I could, and made him run as fast as he could, trying to help him escape from whatever he was trying to run from. Suddenly, I heard that creepy laugh again. That awful Kefka laugh. Right after 10 seconds have passed, as I helped Tails run through the forest. And then I started seeing flashes of Sonic popping everywhere on the screen, again with those black and red eyes. The music changed to that suspenseful, drowning jingle, as I see Sonic behind Tails, slowly gaining up on him, flying. Sonic wasn't running, he was actually flying. The flying pose his sprite was making looked very similar to Metal Sonic's flying pose in Sonic CD, except it was just Sonic. And he had black and red eyes. Again. Only. This time, he had the most deranged looking grin on his face. He looked as though he was enjoying the torment he was giving the poor little fox as he gained up on him. Suddenly, when Tails tripped, another cutscene, that music stopped, and Sonic vanished. Tails laid there and started crying for 15 seconds. The scene was rather upsetting to watch, and I kind of teared up myself. But then Sonic appeared right in front of Tails, and Tails looked up in horror. Blood started to come down those blackened eyes of Sonic's, as a grin slowly grew from his face, as he looked down at the horrified fox. I could do nothing but watch. Just in a split second, Sonic lunged at Tails before the screen went black. There was a loud screeching noise that only lasted 5 seconds. The text returned, only this time it said, "You're too slow! Wanna try again?" And then that god-awful laugh came with it.
I was so shocked by what had happened. Did Sonic murder Tails? No, he couldn't have. He and Tails are supposed to be best friends, right? Why did Sonic do that to him? I shook the shock off as I was brought back to the character select. The save file that had Tails was different. Tails was no longer in the box itself, but in the TV screen itself, which was flickering with that red static. Tails' expression scared me. His eyes were black and bleeding. His orange fur had gone black, and he had an expression of anguish on his face. Trying to ignore it, I picked Knuckles next. The laugh came again, and the screen cut to black again, and stayed there for another 10 seconds. This time, the level said, "You can't run." I was really freaked out by now. I couldn't really tell if this was a glitch or a hack or some kind of sick, twisted joke, or anything really. But despite my fear of what happened next, I kept playing. The next level looked much different. It had the ground of the scrap brain zone, but the sky background looked like the main menu. I also noticed that Knuckles looked afraid, just like Tails did, though not as much. More rather, he looked a little unnerved. He broke the fourth wall just like Tails and looked as if he wasn't sure about going on. But I made a move anyway.
He ran down the straight pathway in this dark level, and as he did, the screen started to flicker red static a couple times, and then that maddening laugh came back. Then, after a few seconds of running, I noticed several bloodstains on the metallic ground. I felt a growing sense of fear again, thinking something horrible is going to happen to Knuckles. He looked nauseated, walking down this blood-stained road. Suddenly, as Knuckles ran, Sonic appeared right in front of him with those black and red eyes. Red static came again, and then I was back to the level. Knuckles looked like he was panicking, and Sonic was nowhere to be found. Was this some kind of boss battle with Sonic? I hope to God it wasn't, honestly. Suddenly, Sonic appeared right behind Knuckles in what appeared to be pixelated black smoke. I made Knuckles turn and then punch Sonic, but Sonic vanished in black pixelated smoke before I could even land a hit. That terrible laugh went off again. Then Sonic appeared behind Knuckles again, and then I made him punch again, and Sonic vanished again laughing. Knuckles was panicking even more, and when I felt like I was going crazy, Sonic was practically playing with us. He was playing a sick, twisted little mind game with me and Knuckles.
Another cutscene played as Knuckled fell to his knees and clutched his head sobbing. I felt his agony. Sonic was driving us both crazy. And then in a split second, Sonic lunged at Knuckles and the screen went black with another distorted screeching noise that lasted for at least 3 seconds. Another text message appeared. So many souls to play with. So little time. Would you agree?
No!
What the hell? Just what is going on? I started to think Sonic was actually trying to talk me through the game, but I was too scared to think that. I was brought back to the main menu, and this time the second file box had Knuckles in the TV screen. His red fur had darkened to a reddish gray, his dreadlocks were dripping with blood, and his eyes were black and bleeding too. And he had a look of sadness on his face. I began to think that those were actual characters trapped in those TV screens on the save files. But I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it.
So I shut off the game and took a break. I took a nap. Wish I hadn't, cause then I began to have the most disturbing nightmare. I was in pitch black darkness, though I was under the light given off by a lamp that hung high above my head. I could hear the cries of Knuckles and Tails nearby. They were saying stuff like, "Help us," and "Why did you give us to him?" and "Run away before he gets you too."
Oh no!
Their cries died out, as I then heard Sonic laugh. "You're a lot of fun to play with, kid, just like your friend Kyle." Though, he didn't last long. I was... God damn it. I need to get my head out of the fucking gutter.
Oh no!
What the fuck?
I was scared, and looking around for the source of the voice. "Won't be long now until you join him and all my other friends." I saw him walking toward me, flickering in and out in several directions. "You can't run, kid. You're in my world now, just like the others." When he grabbed me, I saw his bleeding black and red-eyed grinning face. I woke up with a fright. After a couple hours, I decided to continue playing the game. I don't know why, but I had to know. I had to figure out why this was happening. So I turned on the computer, turned on the game, and selected Robotnik next. The level title appeared again, and this time it said ... which I found real freaky.
This time I was in some kind of hallway. Didn't really look like it was from any of the classic Sonic games, though it has the pixelated style. The music was oddly pleasant, a piano playing a rather sad yet peaceful song, but I knew better. This was the song that played in Hill Act 1, only it wasn't in reverse. Robotnik didn't look entirely nervous like Tails and Knuckles did, but he did have a suspicious look on his face, as if he was just a bit paranoid. He did a little animation when I just left him standing. He turns his head to the left and then to the right, at least twice, and then shrugs at me, as if he has no idea where he was or what was going on. Even though I was scared out of my mind about what was going to happen, I had Robotnik continue forward. Then I stop at a long flight of stairs leading downward. Now I was nervous. Even Robotnik seemed unsure of himself, though. I pressed onward.
Then we landed onto another hallway. This one was longer than the last one, or at least it felt like it. And then we head down another flight of stairs down.
If I have to go down one more fucking set of stairs, I'm sending a pipe bomb to the shitty vault detective this godforsaken building.
this one was much longer. Took at least 1 full minute. And then I heard that horrid Kefka laugh again. And then the music slowly faded until it was quiet. As it did, the walls turned more dark red when Robotnik landed onto the third hallway. I noticed he now looked really creeped out, though he tried to hide it. I couldn't blame him. I was scared too. Suddenly, Sonic popped right in front of Robotnik the same way he did Knuckles, and then red static. The red static lasted for about 15 seconds, and then it showed me a most unpleasant image. ... The image showed a hyper-realistic of Sonic standing in the darkness where you can only see his face while his head and torso faded into black. And when I say hyper-realistic, I mean like he looked so real you could actually see the lines in his blue fur, as if you could actually feel the fur if you touched the screen.
His face. He had the most horrifying smile I have ever seen. And that's saying something considering I saw that image at the start of the game. His eyes are wide and black and once again crying blood, which also looked hyper-realistic. And there were 2 small glowing red dots in those black eyes staring right at me, as if staring into my mind. His grin was wide and demonic. It literally stretched to the sides of his face like a Cheshire cat. Except Sonic had fangs. Very sharp fangs. Much like the werehog's teeth, except more vicious looking. Somewhat yellowish, and from the look of it, he had stains of blood and small bits of flesh on his lips and fangs, as if he ate some animal. I stared at the gruesome image for a good 30 seconds, never taking my eyes off it. I felt as if he was actually looking at me, smiling at me. That face. It just took 10 seconds for it to etch itself into my brain for good. Then the screen flickered with red static again 3 times, and on the 3rd time I heard the Kefka laugh, except this time it sounded distorted, demonic even. It went back to the image again, except this time there was the text again, though it was messed up. But it was pretty much one of the most horrifying things I looked at since I had the game. I am God.
It was when I read that message while looking at Sonic when it hit me. I realized right there and then, this Sonic was a monster, a pure evil, sadistic, all-powerful, nightmarish, demented monster. And all his victims, including Tails, Knuckles, Robotnik, and possibly Kyle, are all just his little toys. And the game is the very gateway into his chaotic, nightmarish world.
His world! Like it's just a gateway!
And the very hell his victims are trapped in. And in an actual split second, I screamed as Sonic lunged at the screen, screeching loudly, with his mouth wide open to an unnatural length, revealing nothing but a literally spiraling abyss of pure darkness before the red static came again, this time much louder and distorted. So loud that it hurt my ears. I yelled and grabbed my ears as the red static screeched for a good 7 seconds. Then it stopped, showing nothing but a black screen. As I sat there staring at the black screen, one last text came up. Ready for round 2, Tom?
The Kefka laugh, now sounding more clear as if Sonic was right behind me, played again 3 times as I looked at that text in shock and confusion. Then I got booted back to the main menu, and this time the 3rd save file had a TV image of Robotnik in the same tormented state as Tails and Knuckles. Robotnik's skin turned a dull gray, his mustache drooped and had blackened. His glasses broke and blood is coming from them. And he had a mere dead-like expression on his face. I looked at Tails, Knuckles, and Robotnik and I cried a bit. I pitied them for the agony they're going through. They were forever trapped within the game, forever tormented by that horrid hedgehog, and always will be. Then the computer shut itself off. I couldn't turn it back on no matter what I did. I sat there for maybe 25 seconds, horrified by what had just happened. Sonic is the very embodiment of evil. He tortures people who play his game in more ways than one, and then when he gets bored, he drags you into the game, literally drags you to hell, where he can play with you always, as his toy. I can't get the game out of my computer. I think it's stuck in there, but at least I managed to turn it back on now. After I sat there for 25 seconds, I heard a voice right behind me, like a whisper. Try to keep this interesting for me, Tom. I turned around to see where the voice came from, and what I saw made me scream. Sitting on my bed, staring right at me, was a Sonic plushie, smiling with bloodstains under his eyes.
Hey guys, Kaznari is here. As the editor of this video, I feel the need to pull back the curtain a little bit and talk about a couple things that have to do with House of Horror. When you're editing House of Horror, it's hard to not put yourself in the writer's shoes. Often these pastas are written by somebody a decade ago in a very different time period. One that isn't full of the cliches we know today. And we're very aware of that. I'm sure that the authors of most of these pastas are very different from who they were 10 years ago. As such, I've recently started to make a point to contact some of them to get their opinions on these and their thoughts on their own stories. I actually reached out to the author of the last video we did, and he was a super cool guy about it. Honestly, if you're watching this, dude, you're awesome. The fact that you like it means that we are doing things right. Very shortly after recording Sonic.exe, however, we looked up its author and found out that they did some pretty messed up stuff. I'm not going to get into it, but it did make us pause and question if we even wanted to release this. The thing about Sonic.exe though, is that despite everything that it has gained a huge following of people making art for it, making sequel stories, making songs, making video games, making whatever the hell this is. Stuff that's actually very unironically creepy and cool. I feel I can honestly say that Sonic.exe isn't just this author's creation anymore. It's the culmination of everyone who's making content for it. And when we considered that, and how every other line is like the quintessential bad creepypasta starter pack, we knew we had to get it done. Anyway, but I hope you like this kind of behind the scenes look on us, and I hope you like the video. Comment, subscribe, like, all that jazz, and I'll see you soon.